right, welcome in another LNP Lancaster Online Sports Roundtable. John Walk here with colleagues Mike Gross and Jeff Reinhart. On the horn with us this week is Reading Eagle veteran sports writer Mr. Mike Drago. Reason being, he has obviously covered Berks County sports, Berks League sports for years on end, and is very knowledgeable with the football scene with the Berks League, which is topical at the moment, considering we're coming off, a week or so ago of LL Board of Control voting to bring in the Berks League as an associate member in football beginning in the 2022 season. So we thought, hey, let's have Mike on. He's very knowledgeable of all the teams in the Berks League, just to kind of give us a sense as to what we could possibly expect. With that, I will throw it to my colleague, Mr. Mike Gross, for the first question.
Michael, is Berks County, would you say universally all 13 members on board with this and excited about it and in favor of it?
I think so. Safe to say, I haven't heard a negative word about this from the beginning. You know, two and a half years ago when it first popped up, everybody was excited. The Berks League really needs this. They've had some serious scheduling issues for the last several years, since Pottsville and Blue Mountain were once part of the league for a few years, and the league was at its strongest back at that point. But those teams left 4 or 5 years ago, and there's been a real growing disparity in Section 2, the smaller schools, between Berks Catholic, Wyomissing. Those two programs have really separated themselves from everybody else. So that's become an issue. So it's really a win-win for almost every team. I look at the Berks team and see where they might be placed, and it looks good for almost every team.
I think that when I started calling around and talking to people for what I wrote last week, the LL is not quite as universal in the LL. There are some people there that are opposed to it for a variety of reasons. And one of the things that's so interesting to me about this is if the Lancaster-Lebanon League had stayed with this 24 teams, 3 sections, 8 in each section, this might not be happening. Part of it is right. Part of this is football people in our league being so unhappy with the way this current setup with 7-7. What is it? 7-7 and 10.
Yeah.
In the section.
The last cycle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I look back at because they tried to accommodate Lebanon and Ephrata by moving them down, and that threw the whole thing off, and that created this controversy which didn't exist before. So Berks was the beneficiary of that.
That's exactly right. That's my point. That's where I'm going.
You're right.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, for the
Uh-oh, we lost the big guy.
Yeah, the LL created this problem themselves. Correct.
Yeah. Right.
Mike,
Yeah.
for the casual LL football fan, tell us about the Berks League. What kind of football? What the competition will be like? Because everybody's going to want to know right away. I think everybody's kind of heard of Berks Catholic and heard of YO, but just talk about the competition level and what kind of football LL people, are probably going to see here in a couple of years.
Well, I've made some assumptions about the way certain divisions are going to break down, but I think it worked out really well from a competition level. I mean, Section 1 essentially unchanged. Reading High will go in there. They're going to struggle. They'll be at the bottom of that section, at least at this point. Section 2, Governor Mifflin and Exeter both at the top of their game right now, and they have been for about 10, 12 years or longer, even for Mifflin. So that Section 2 potentially is going to be a excellent battle between those two teams. Warwick, Mannheim Central, of course, will be the kingpin there. I'm assuming that they move up. So that's going to be, some tremendous football. Section 2. Section 3, none of those teams really have distinguished themselves football-wise. I'm looking at Daniel Boone, Twin Valley, Fleetwood, along with Ephrata, Solanco, Garden Spot. So that thing is wide open too. I think that's going to create a very balanced look. And then, of course, Section 4 is just going to be a Donnybrook, because I'm expecting Wyomissing to move up. We'll be there with Berks Catholic, Cocalico, Lampeter, Strasburg. I mean, Conrad Weiser also is a very good program. So I think that's going to be the section to watch. It's kind of crazy that the fourth fourth smallest section could be the most interesting.
No doubt.
Drago, for those who might be unfamiliar with, okay, why in the world was Berks League looking around in the first place? Can you kind of summarize, in a sense, and what led us to this place?
Well, the league's down to 13 teams now, and 6 in the largest section. So that means 5 non-league games, and we all know, because we talk to athletic directors all the time, those are just a bear to find when you need a non-league game in weeks 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Berks Catholic AD's telling me he's had inquiries from schools in Texas that they want him to come down there. They're willing to pay them to come down and play. I mean, how crazy is that? And Reading High was looking at a game in West Virginia, and Berks Catholic has played a Baltimore team the last few years. That's not really what you want to see. You don't want to be traveling out of state playing schools you have nothing in common with, and so I think it's a great marriage, because I think that a lot of similarities culturally between Lancaster County and Berks County. I think it's a great fit that way, educationally and football-wise too.
And there shouldn't be a travel issue. I know John's been working on some stories about budgets and travel, but you're talking about one bus ride every other year for like Fleetwood to go to, wherever, northern Lebanon. Has that been an issue with the Berks folks?
Yeah.
Yet? No.
The biggest travel section would be the smallest, section 5. There would be, because the Berks smallest schools are all in the northern part of the county. So that will be the longest trips. But again, those are all schools along with Columbia and Peckaway Valley that are just struggling to maintain teams.
Sure.
So an extra 20 or 30-minute ride will be nothing to complain about, because those teams will be thrilled to have a chance to win 3, 4, 5 games in a season, which right now they're winning 0 or 1 or 2. Yeah. So, I think travel's the least of their concern.
Yeah, I think that's a very minor issue. I think that's next to nothing. I think even for our league, that's kind of what your story reflects, right, John? I mean, no, people aren't saying that's a big deal.
Yeah, essentially without giving a lot of it away.
Sorry.
Man, I've been crunching, man, it brought me back to my high school and college days where I just struggled at math, because I've been crunching a lot of numbers the last couple of days and my brain is just fried. But yeah, essentially the teams in sections 1 and 2, it's kind of minimal in terms of the games that they lose, games that they pick up, and those across sections 3, 4, and 5, only half of them of the LL League teams anyway will see their mileage go up. But okay, you say mileage, what does that really mean? The one school I kind of gave an example with was Elizabethtown, at least from my calculations, the travel that they have had over the last 2 years, around 350 round trip miles, versus the travel that they'll have over the first 2 years with Berks teams would go up to about 550 miles. I'm talking just sectional games. So you're looking at an increase of 200 round trip miles over 2 years. What does that look like in terms of dollars and cents? And the E-Town athletic director said, hey, we looked at that. We send 7 buses to an away game, and we're maybe looking at a couple $100 extra in gas money once a year. So they were willing to take on a little bit of an extra cost. And he kind of compared it, hey, you got to keep in mind, we have travel budgets at school that are in the tens of thousands of dollars. So what does a couple $100 really mean? And, it allows them to be a little bit more competitive with the Berks League teams that are coming in that sense. So look for that story on Sunday, by the way.
There you go.
Mike, the teams down there that I know something about, I know a little bit about why am I missing in Berks Catholic. They're pretty old school style of play, style of offense, right? Is that a fair statement? So is there anybody down there who's doing something innovative, is throwing the ball all over the place? I guess throwing the ball all over the place is no longer innovative, but tell us a little bit from that standpoint, style of X and O style of play.
The Berks League has evolved in the last 10 years into a run-oriented league. Yeah. And it's for 2 reasons. One is at Berks Catholic and Wyomissing, you have Rick Keeley and Bob Wolfram, who have run the wing T for 30 plus years, and it's worked, and they're not going to change. So, a lot of teams have adopted that offense as well. And just as importantly, Governor Mifflin about 15 years ago went to a veer style midline option and has been highly successful with it. And then since then, Reading copied that, and a few other schools have copied that. So it's mostly a run-oriented league. The exception would be Exeter, which has a really multiple balanced offense, and they do like to throw the ball, and they've had a string of very good quarterbacks over the last 10 to 12 years. Wilson, of course, about, they'll throw the ball a lot too. They have a very multiple offense. Yeah. And Fleetwood, the last few years, has had a quarterback. Or last year that they've had Charlie Maddox, and before that they had Luke Emge for a year. So they will put the ball up, and now they've got the younger Maddox will play quarterback. So they will throw the ball some. But for the most part, it's been a run-oriented league, I would say, for some time.
That helps us with deadline anyway.
Here's the big, yeah, really. Here's the big
Speak for yourself.
Here's the big question for all of us: how in the world are we going to cover all this? Have we gotten that far yet?
Wow.
I mean, I think we're pretty thorough, all of us sitting here. Wow, 37 teams.
Well, in our business, 2 years could be like 200 years. So we're,
right.
I don't know how I'm going to get through this fall, to be honest with you. So 2022, you might not have me on here as a guest, because who knows where anybody's going to be. But it's going to be a challenge. You're right.
Yeah, I think our football tab is going to be like, what?
37 team football.
Really, like that guy that does those biographies of presidents, that Lyndon Johnson biography that he worked on for 10 years. It'll be like that, gargantuan volume.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Hey, Mike, kind of last question for me. We know kind of going to the LL League, at least in the coming fall season, some of the top names, 3 of them are at Warwick, and Joey McCracken, Caleb Schmitz, Nolan Rucci. Jeff just put up a story about Anthony Ivy at Manheim Township. These are guys that are all getting, for the most part, top-line Division I scholarship offers. Is there anybody in the Berks League kind of coming up through class of 2021 that you're really keeping an eye on?
Well, without a doubt, Governor Mifflin running back Nick Singleton has been collecting Division I offers since last July. Penn State offered, and now pretty much most of the Big Ten has offered him. He's got close to 24 offers, so he's easily the biggest prospect in the county. His teammate Cameron Stewart accepted an offer to Rutgers a month or 2 ago. Exeter's got a very good quarterback. Wilson, of course, will always have some good players. Those would be the marquee guys at this point. Berks Catholic is not quite the dominant team they were 3 to 4 years ago, when they had a couple of D1 guys in their backfield just about every year. Wyomissing has a good prospect in Jeff Nadrowski, but he may actually be more inclined to go to track, because he's a tremendous javelin thrower. Evan Nadrowski, his dad was Jeff, who was a district state champ, and Evan is too. So that might be his college ticket, but still he could be a D1 type prospect as well in football.
Nice.
Mike, does Singleton pop out when you watch him play? Is he
oh yeah,
really impressive?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's head and shoulders above anybody in the Berks League. I mean, he's a legitimate big time prospect. He just tremendous physical skills, and just one of those workout monsters that goes to these Nike camps and just
I see his tweets all of them where he's how much he's squatting and all that. Will he be a running back in college, you think?
I think the jury's still out. I think a lot of schools right now are thinking of him as a D-back, even though he hasn't played that spot much. But, he's an athlete. You can find a spot on the field for him in a lot of different areas.
Right.
Cool. Jeff, Mike, anything else?
I was thinking about this the other day. It's going to be weird. It's going to be weird for all of us, but that like a Berks County kid could come into the LL League and break Kyle Smith's passing record, so break somebody's all-time record, right? And and then maybe Berks leaves in 4 years, and we'll have all these Berks records. That's going to be weird. More stuff for us. More stuff for us to chase and track and stats, and It'll be fun, but no, that crossed my mind for whatever reason. So I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, that's just the way things are going. You look at the college level, go back 10, 15 years ago when the mega conferences started to form, and now you've got the big six that really control everything. And that's sort of where we're heading in high school football. We're getting there. I mean, I'm just working on a story, again, don't scoop me here, John, but, about these mega conferences across the state with the Mid-Penn. This year they picked up the Tri-Valley teams, and the Schuylkill League and Colonial League are combining. And, so this is the wave of the future. I mean, 10 years from now, if we're doing this, we might be talking about a LL Mid-Penn merger and a 70-team conference.
District 3.
Yeah. Similar to the WPIAL. I mean, that's if you want to call that a league, that's 120 teams over 15 sections, and it's strictly set up for playoffs, all by enrollment. And I think that's where we're going. Could be 10 to 20 years from now, but
I never really thought of that. That's a good. Yeah. Well, right now, this merged football league in 4A, 5A, and 6A will have like 40 to 45% of the schools in District 3 will be in our league, will be in this league.
Right.
Not less so in the smaller schools, but the Mid-Penn, that will probably be the case in the Mid-Penn with the smaller schools across all 6 classes, because of the Tri-Valley League has a lot of smaller schools. So that's where they'll be going. That's crazy.
And we as reporters, at least me and Jeff anyway, have heard it in the last few years, coaches all the time. Oh, we're looking forward to the playoffs because we get to see all these new teams. Well, talking to Elko athletic director Doug Bohannon last week made a good point of like, hey, all the teams you're going to play in the regular season, you're most likely going to face a second time again in the playoffs. It's going to happen all the time now.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
but this concept of this mega league, it's adaptable for football, where you get a disparity between 2 teams. Games can become blowouts much easier in football,
right.
and kids can get injured. And the other thing is, again, it's a Friday night thing. So if you get home at midnight, it's not a big deal. It's not a school night. So travel is not as important. It's once every 2 years. It's not like basketball where it's a home and home and you play on a Tuesday night, and you don't want the kids getting home late. So with football, it works. That's why I think that the travel as we go forward is going to be less important, and matchups will be more important.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, hey, thank you guys all for watching. Thanks to Mr. Mike Drago. Feel free to find him, follow him on Twitter. And we're obviously going to be reading his stuff a lot more now moving forward with Berks coming on board. Looking forward to working with him in many years to come. Thanks to you guys for watching. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Michael Jack. All right.